Good evening and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Brian Yacono. Amanda Hill is on assignment. Did you hear that? Yeah, across the U.S., millions of people hear sounds just like that every day, notifying them of new text messages. But sometimes those texts are coming from scammers trying to get their hands on your personal data or your money. Text message scams are costing Americans big right now, more than $330 million in 2022 alone, according to the Federal Trade Commission. And while some scams pretend to be about turnpike tolls, the most common ones impersonate something even more personal, your bank. News 7 Maine's Julie Sherburne explains how to spot them and how to protect yourself. Sussman also warns tax season is prime scam time. With e-filing so popular, people are waiting for that text that says their return has been accepted. So she says be cautious of any texts about your taxes. And in fact, just last week, the Mount Desert Island School District learned that they had fallen victim to a similar cybercrime. According to a press release from the superintendent there, school staff received a request, later found to be fraudulent, to change bank account information in early January, and it was processed. But when a contractor working on the Bar Harbor School construction project submitted a payment request for more than $1 million, that money was transferred into the fraudulent account. School staff immediately reported what happened to the town, local police, and the district's bank. The FBI is now investigating, and the account that received the money has reportedly been frozen. The superintendent says they are now working to get the money back to the district's account. Maine, like so many states, grapples with an opioid crisis, and lawmakers in Augusta are tackling a question. How many hypodermic needles should someone receive after they have given in one? Now, since 2022, the Maine Centers for Disease Control has allowed for needle exchange programs in our state to offer 100 syringes per encounter with someone in need. But a new bill would seek to bring that ratio down to its earlier level of one clean needle for one used needle. Supporters argue a reduced ratio would mean fewer dirty and potentially dangerous needles on the streets and in public spaces. But those opposed say basing syringe exchange rates on needs instead of numbers leads to more disease prevention and dialogue between those who are addicted to drugs and those trying to get them help.
When we give folks the needles that they need or the services that they need, they also share it with their friends and community members and networks as well. And so that means those impacts goes beyond the individual.
Remember that municipal officials have to take into account the benefit to all of their residents and not just a single population within their community. It's pure trash volume that is potentially a biohazard.
By the way, the bill to return needle exchanges to the 1-to-1 ratio will next head to a work session in the legislature's Health and Human Services Committee. Ryan Breton is tracking our forecast. A lot more than just the rain, Ryan. This time of year, we also have our eyes on the rivers and streams.
Absolutely, Brian. And a lot of the flooding we've seen today isn't really from the rain. It's more that we've had so much ice breaking up on some of the rivers and streams, causing jams and backups.
This is News Center Maine at 6. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Yacono. Amanda Hill is on assignment. We begin this half hour with the big melt and subsequent flooding that parts of Maine are seeing right now. So we want to show you what it looked like in Kingfield, where an ice dam formed on the Carrabassett River. That caused authorities to issue a flood watch this morning that lasted there through most of the day. Just this afternoon, Tom sent us this photo he took of the Sandy River near Farmington going over its banks. And here is a time-lapse of video taken from the Calumet Bridge over the Kennebec River in Augusta from Saturday to this morning. As you can see here, what ice remained over the weekend was broken up, and that river continues to rise this evening. After a colder than average winter, Maine is now seeing a stretch of warmer than average weather. Less snow and an early start to the spring thaw doesn't mean less work for our public works departments. News Center Maine's Christian Harsa has more. Now, even with all the melting snow, we Mainers know winter could be far from over. After all, they do call April the cruelest month for a good reason. Keith Carson joins us live with that part of the story. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the chances of snow in April. But first, Brian, I want to quiz you on something.
Oh, quiz time. Okay, bring it on.
How often, what percentage of the years would you say that Portland has 6 inches or more of snow in a single storm in April? So one storm, 6 inches or more.
I would say 40% of the time.
Okay, and I think a lot of people would guess that.
Yeah.
The actual numbers are lower than you would think. So 12% of
Much
the time.
lower.
That's the end of the quiz. You
Okay, good.
did well because that's what I think almost everybody would say 40 or 50% of the time. So if we go back the 84 years on record in Portland that they measured precipitation and temperature. Of course, Brian, it may not surprise you, we do better with snowstorms in April overnight as the sun angle is very strong that time of the year.
Yeah, the cold air at night helps. All right, Keith, anything could happen next month. Thanks so much. To Augusta now, where state officials and a Maine school district were notified by the Trump administration today they are violating Title IX in allowing transgender athletes to compete in school sports. That notification, which was not a surprise, came from the Office for Civil Rights within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The OCR said it determined that Maine's Department of Education, the Maine Principals Association, which is the governing body of high school sports, and Greeley High School are discriminating against girls in allowing what it called biological boys to compete against them. A transgender track and field athlete for Greeley did compete in a sanctioned girls event, which caught the attention of the president. OCR says all three entities must agree to commit to the Trump administration's interpretation of Title IX within 10 days or face further action from the U.S. Justice Department. Governor Mills famously told the president at the White House meeting just last month that she would follow both federal and state law and that she would see him in court. Needle exchanges have a very simple premise. Give users of intravenous drugs clean syringes and take their dirty ones to protect them and others against the transmission of diseases like HIV and hepatitis C. But as News on Maine's Donovan Lynch reports, a debate at the local level about how many clean needles a person should get is now making its way into the Maine legislature.